So we are going to start with the corrections for the assignment I gave last week. So those of you that are, didn't get the entire mark, you know exactly where your fault is, and you take correction. So I'm going to be sharing my screen at the moment. All right. We before we move to what we have for today, I would be taking I'll be doing the corrections for the assignment. So let me. So yeah, one thing I like to do is that whenever I see an exceptional assignment, an assignment that is well answer the answers are actually well detailed, I just download them, right? I download them and I use them for correction. So you see how your fellow students approaches this assignment, right? Approaches this assignment. So I have a few of them here, but I'll just use one, right? And I think I'll use Taiwo's own. I love the way he answered the questions. It showed that he was actually in the class, right? The way he approached everything, it showed that he was actually in the class. So now, I won't waste much time. I'll just go through the questions. For question one, this question one is basically to test you on your string formatting knowledge. Right, last week we talked about string formatting, the three different methods of formatting strings. So this question one is just to basically test your knowledge on that. As you can see, the question one has three questions under it, right? Given the variable name, Alice, and age tag, so use the old style formatting to construct and print the sentence. So this one A basically is asking you to use the old formatting method. One B asking you to use string.format method. One C is asking you to use the F string method, right? So as you can see here, the explanation, the approach, and everything is actually very nice. Although you don't necessarily have to do it, right? I just need the answer to the question. So as you can see, we have the variable name, Alice, and the age 30. So basically, as I taught last week, what you do here is to write your string, and then the places you want to include the variable, you would use the placeholder percent and S or D, depending on the data type, to just as a placeholder for the variable, right? So once you've done that, you just come here and then put your percentage sign. So basically, you just need to understand the syntax as explained last week, right? And there's something I said in as instruction for this assignment. So please always read the instructions, right? Always read the instructions. I said use comments in your code. So I needed you to practice what we are teaching, right? So as you're writing your code, I needed you to use comments to explain. So I'm trying to just make us imbibe that. It's actually a good practice. Yeah, the good practice of writing code. So you don't just write code there. You write code with comments. So when other people are reading your code, they understand what it is you are writing. Right. So that was the why I gave this instruction. So for those that might not have used code in the comments, it's going to actually affect your mark. It's going to affect your mark. So make sure that whenever you are taking any assignments in this program, you read the instruction very well. So this is just a single instruction. Yeah, use comments in your code, right? So so for this first question, you can see it's straightforward. And the second question is to use the format um, method, right? So as you can see, I won't go into that again, but in the last class I told you how to use the format method, right? So although you don't necessarily have to put anything here, but this is just a kind of more detailed manner of doing the formatting. But you just put an empty bracket here, an empty bracket here, and you place your formatting here. So I think what Taiwo did here is actually just referencing the position of these variables in this particular location. So yeah, but I just need you to do what we we did in the last class, but this is actually commendable. So once he is using the F string, so this is the particular method you'd be using the most, F string formatting. So very straightforward method. Just put an F at the beginning, then write your string and put the variable names inside your curly braces. So that's it for question one. If you did that, great. You have your mark, 1 mark, right? So each question is 1 mark, and the total questions, the assignment is 10 mark in total. So question two, given two variables, A 10, B is equals to 20, use a comparison operator to check if A is less than B and print the result. This is a very straightforward question, right? So as you can see here, A is equals to 10, B is equals to 20. Okay, before I move on, I just want to be sure everyone is hearing me. Please, can you indicate in the live class group, if you can hear me clearly? I need feedback from the class, please. Let me know if you can hear me. All right, perfect, perfect. All right, perfect. So, this is the variable we've initialized here, and as you can see, the question is asking you to use the comparison operator to check if A is less than B. So the comparison operator here is the less than operator because you want to check if A is less than B. So this is what you use here. This operator here, this is what you use. The less than sign. And this is what I just expected you to do. Less than, you can just write this operation and then run it, and you see your results here true. So once I see true, then you've gotten your mark. Yeah, this is just giving extra information, right? That shows that it's putting more effort to into the whole thing, and that is commendable. Right. So question three, it's okay. There's a variable called color that I gave here, red, blue, green, and the question here is to use a membership operator to check if yellow is in colors, right, and print true if it is and false otherwise, right. So I'm just assessing your knowledge on membership operator. So basically, we have your variables here, and then you can just come here and write this particular syntax, yellow in color. So this is the syntax to check if yellow is in color. So once you run this code, you should get false. Like you should get false. So in this particular case, you don't necessarily have to use an if statement. You can use an if statement, but you don't need an if statement. You can just write this particular sentence, Python code, right? And then run it, and you get your result false. So the next question, question four, using the variables x is equals to 5 and y is equals to 10, use a Python expression using logical operator. So you can see the trend now. The first one was comparison operator, second one was membership operator. This one now is logical operators, right? So basically you are trying to know if x is less than y and x is not equal to y. So these are two different comparisons, right? So you want to use a logical operation to get the answer, right? Just to assess just to answer this particular question, if x is less than y and x is not equal to y. So this is what you do here. You come here and just say it, x is less than y and x is not equal to y. So this is basically what I just need you to do. And then if you run it, you get your answer true, because x is what? X is 5 and y is 10, right? So x is less than 5 and x is not equal to 1, right? 5 is not equal to 10, so your answer should be true. So if you get anything otherwise, you don't get that question, right? So for question 5 now, this actually a bit tricky, right? So what I'm asking here is to take a variable count. This count is a variable, right? Equal to 5. Then use a compound assignment operator. So now this is very specific. There was a reason I said compound assignment operator. If you did it otherwise, you would not get, like, you've not answered this question. So this is the compound assignment operator here. I remember I talked about it. So as you can see, we have several of them. We have multiplication and equal to, we have subtraction and equal to, we have addition and equal to. So this is a compound assignment operator, right? They are compounded. So for those of us that did something like this, I saw some assignment that is something like this. Count is equals to count plus or count times 2, right? So I saw people doing something similar to this, right? This is going to give you the same answer. It's going to give you the same answer, but this was not the essence of this question. I needed you to use this compound assignment operator here to answer this question. So the instruction was there. So so you can see it here. You use a compound assignment operator to double its value. Okay, so how do you double its value? You the value is 5 here, right? The value is 5. So how do you do 5? You multiply it by 2, right? Or you add it by itself. Either you do count times equal to 2 or count plus equal to 5. Either way is correct. You double its value and then decrement it by 2. So as you can see here, the value is 5, then it is doubled, that is 2. So what you have here is 10. So count is now 10. So you now subtract it from 2, which is 8. So your final output should be 8, right? You should be getting 8 here. So if you get anything outside 8, you've not gotten it right. So that's question 5. So for question 6, question 6 is okay. We have a question here. Suppose mood equal to happy. Use logical operators to print mood is positive if mood is either happy or excited. So this is using logical operator and also if statement. So this is basically what I expected you to do. If mood is equal to happy or mood is equal to excited, print mood is positive. So the reason why this is a logical, this requires an if statement is because we needed to perform an action here. And the action is what? Print mood is positive, right? If I told you that check if mood is happy and check if mood is happy or excited, print true. You can just use the logical operator and the comparison operator straight just like that without using an if statement. But we needed to print something. So that was why an if statement is necessary to answer this question here. So we'll come here and then you should get this because mood is what? Happy. If I come here and I change mood to be sad, it's not going to execute, right? So there will be nothing here because mood is what? Mood is sad. And in this particular conditional statement, mood should either be happy or excited, right? So all this thing is just trying to test your understanding of the concept we treated in the other class. So question 7 now, I asked you to take two variables, height equal to 180 and weight equal to 75. Then use compound assignment operators to first add 5 to height, right? See another instance of compound assignment operators, right? You use compound assignment to add 5 to height, then subtract 10 from weight. Finally, check if height is greater than 170 and weight is. So this is just basically trying to test your arithmetic knowledge, right, and also your logical operation knowledge. So and your if statement as well. So this is combining the three. So as you can see here in the answer, we have height. I said use compound assignment operator to add 5 to height. So height will now be 185. Weight subtract 10 from weight. So weight will now be what? 65. So the logical operation here is okay. If height is greater than 170 and weight is less than 80, then print healthy. So this should have just gone directly to this place here. There's no need to assign it to a variable, right? So for simplicity's sake. So you could have just gone straight here. So you just have if height is greater than 170, and so this is also an if statement, conditional statement. So yeah, that's it for number 7. So for question 8, the question is giving a list of fruits, right? Apple, banana, cherry. Use the not operator with a membership text to check if mango is not in fruits. Then print. So whenever you see an action that should be taken, if it states for based on the condition, you know that you have to use an if statement. So now, if you just go, you see here we have the list fruits. So if mango is not a fruit, then you what print mango. So if you check here, mango is not a fruit. So to give you true, then to execute this action here. Very straightforward. So question 9. Now question 9 is a little bit um long, right? So we have a list of fruits, right? I don't know if the question is here. Okay, we have a list of fruits, right? And this is the list of fruits here. So we have plenty of them. So the question is to check if apple, guava, pawpaw, and avocado is in this list, right? And if they are not in that, if they are in the list, right, you just print a statement saying, "Oh, this fruit is in the list." But if you check and the fruit is not in the list, what will you do? You would add that fruit to the list. And I know we've not really talked about attributes, object, and everything, but in the last class, if you remember, I used a particular function, list function, to add an element to a list. So I wanted to also assess your knowledge on that. So we have 4 fruits here that you're going to check against this particular list. And you are to check if it is in this list. If it is in the list, you print yes, apple is in this list. If not, then you add that fruit to the list. So at the end of this question, I needed to see something like this. After coconut and fig, I needed to see guava, pawpaw, and avocado. So if I don't see that, you've not gotten the question. Some persons did it separately, which is not what I asked for. Some persons did it like they created a different code block, a different cell, added guava, then they went to another code cell, added pawpaw. So they did not add everything to one list. They added it to different lists. So one list had just guava, one list had just pawpaw, one list had just. So that's not what I asked for. So just check your assignment and correct yourself, right? So this should be the approach here. So now you have your list, fruit list. So if this thing is too long, in Python, if your this thing is too long, you can just come here and press enter. It will take you to the next line. And just so you can see everything at once. So it is not going to give you any error, right? So it is still you are still continuing with it. So you can have everything. So you don't have to have everything in one line because it's so long and you want to see all the elements in the list. So now these are the fruits you have, right? So now the first thing is to check if apple. So if apple not in fruit list, print apple has been added to fruit list. Else print the list already contains apple. Okay, this is actually the reverse of how we are supposed to do it here. So, but what you're supposed to do here is to check if apple in fruit list, then print. Let me see if I can get another one that will give me exactly what I want here. So just give me a minute, right? That should be question 9. All right, great. So this is it here. So this person even did it like he used 3 lines for the entire thing. So now this is how you if in fruit list, then print apple contains fruit list. Else apple is not a fruit list. Right. So this person actually did it in 2 sections, right? But what you're supposed to do is just to come here and do else. You're supposed to come here and append. Yeah, both of you are correct, right? You just the approach you use. It might not be simple to understand for some persons. So you can just come here and say fruits. What's the name? Fruits list dot append apple. So this is what you're supposed to do. If after your if statement, if you find that the apple is not in fruit list, then you append it, right? So you can just come here and say appending apple, right? So you've done that for apple. Now this is for guava. If guava in fruit list, print this thing. Print guava is in fruit list. If not, you append waiver. You'll come here and say print waiver, sorry, append, yeah, append waiver, right? So the same thing for pawpaw and the same thing for avocado. So that should just append the fruit that is not in the list to the list. So this append statement is what you're supposed to use, right? We'll talk more about this today. Don't worry. For those that don't yet understand it, we'll talk more about it today. So now that is it for that. You should just append it to the same list, and at the end of everything, you print your list, right? You come here and print. Okay, let me just go to the next. So this person, Eniola, did it here. So printed the list. So you should have at the end of everything, you should have let me zoom out a little. So you should have guava, pawpaw, and avocado in your list, right? So you should have it in your list. So number 10 question, the last question is basically using an if-elif statement. So this is a very practical use case of if-elif, right? So let's assume you're a teacher now and you want to grade your students. In this case, we just talked about 3 students. Before we continue, I need feedback. Can you still hear me? Let me know in the group chat. Are you still following? Please use the live class to answer, to respond. Use the live class to respond. All right, great. Perfect. All right. So let's assume you're a teacher, right? You have like 600 students, or you have students, right? Like, and you gave them an exam or test, and you got a score. So you want to grade them. You want to grade them, but you want to be sure. You want to use your Python skill, programming skill to automate the grading. So this is actually a situation you can use elif else statement, right? So in this case, this is actually a simple case, right? When we do talk about functions today, we're going to see how it can be more effective with something like this. But for this particular question, I needed you to use if elif, right? So since use the function, the defining functions for me, like where unless you already understand or have a knowledge on functions, right? But I know we've not talked about functions, like we've not actually talked about function in this class, but that's great. Like that is actually nice. It's commendable because it's showing that you're actually reading ahead. That is very, very fine. Like I was actually happy when I saw it. So, but for the purpose of the assignment, I this was what I needed, right? So for the first student, you will create an if elif else statement. So the instruction is here already. If the score, so the instruction is everything is here. So you just come here for the first student, you bring out the variable and say if student A score is greater than or equal to 90. And so as you can see, we are combining a lot of things here. We are combining comparison operation, we are combining logical operation, and we are using if statement, we are bringing in elif statement, and we also use else statement. So when you write this kind of code, Python will go through every single statement here, every single statement, and check the one that is true. So based on this student score here, anyone that is true, that is met, it is going to perform that action. If it is this particular second one, it's going to print grade B. If it's this third one, it's going to give you grade C, right? So the same thing for student B, the same thing for student C. So I won't go spend time on that because I explained it in the last class, right? So this is the assignment. This is basically it. It's basically there to assess what we did last week. And for those of us that got everything correctly, kudos to you. Like, well done, right? For those of us that missed one or two, please go through this correction and readjust yourself. So the assignment is not just there for you to submit and forget about it. It is there to assess, to help you practice what you've done. So just go through what you've done and check the ones that you missed. So you would be able to, in case you meet it again, in the future, you'll be able to attempt it and get it correctly, right? So that's it for the assignment. I hope everybody got that and we are good with that. Please, I need feedback in the group so I will know exactly what's in your mind, right? I love the class to always be interactive. If not for the chaos that it will cause, I would have appreciated or I would have loved if we had a voice feedback, but no, that is going to cause a lot of chaos. So you can just use the live class group to give your feedback, questions, suggestions, observations, whatever. This is a class, right? Imagine this is a physical class. You can always ask questions and just assume we're in a physical class setting. Just let's make it interactive, okay? So yeah, that's it for the assignments. So without further ado, we'll go straight to what we have for today. We'll go straight to what we have for today. Right. So last week we introduced some advanced concepts in Python. We talked about string formatting. We talked about other types of operations in Python. We talked about conditional statements. Okay, I think we stopped at conditional statements, right? So, okay, someone is saying C code. Don't worry, you will cope. Just follow the assignment, the live classes, and everything. I'll do my best to break it down for you. So now, this is where we stopped. This is where we stopped last week. Conditional statement, right? Conditional statement. So today, starting with loops and iteration, another beautiful concept in Python, loops iteration, right? So what does loop mean? A loop, normally we know we should have an idea of what a loop is. A loop is something that repeats itself. Like it repeats itself. So once you do that thing, it continues until until it is terminated. Right? So it's a continuous execution of code repeatedly. That's what a loop is. Iteration is something you do over and over again. So there are actually ways to implement loops, right, in Python. So loops in Python are a fundamental construct that allows for the execution of a block of code repeatedly, either for a fixed number of times or until a certain condition is met, right? So as I've said, so it will continue, that loop will continue executing either for a fixed number of times or until certain condition is met, right? So in Python, we have two primary types of loops. We have for loops and we have while loops. So just get that. We have for loops and we have while loops, right? So these are two types of loops we have in Python. They have their own use cases. They have their own situational use, right? There are scenarios where this particular loop would make sense to use, and there are also situations where these other loops will make perfect sense to use. Right? So they have their own syntax and they have their own manner of approach. So we're going to be going through that today. Right, perfect. So now we're going to start with for loop. So what is a for loop? A for loop is used to iterate over a sequence. This is important to know, right? This is important over a sequence. Like let me even bold this so when you get the material, you'll know that it is important, right? So over a sequence. Sorry, give me a minute, please. All right, great. So over a sequence, so such as list, tuple, dictionary, set, or string. So remember, you see how we are building on what we've already done before. Like now we already know what a list is. I don't have to start explaining, except for the new student. So for the new student, please just bear with us, right? I've dropped the video recording of the classes we've had previously. So please go through them, go through those recording. So they will take you through everything we have done. So you can finally be where we are at, right? So you can meet up where we are at currently. So just take your time, go through this recording tool we made available. So once you've gone through those ones, you can also go through this one. So now we've talked about list, tuple, dictionary, set, and string. So these are sequences in Python, right? So a sequence is it's like a series of events. So in a list, we have a sequence of number or a sequence of elements or whatever element sequence we have in that list. You need to put the same thing. So now a for loop is used to iterate over sequences, right, and execute a block of code for each item in the sequence. So what a for loop does is that it goes over each item in that sequence and does something, right? It executes the code depending on what you specify it to execute. Don't worry, we're going to illustrate and explain it in code so you can see it in action, right? So because I know sometimes talking about these things, abstract stuff might be difficult to grasp because you not understand, you don't have a template on to understand it, right? Like it's not something you've seen before. So don't worry, we'll illustrate it in code. We'll just try to get the main idea behind what I am saying. So a for loop, these are things you need to know. A for loop iterates over a sequence and then execute a block of code for each of those items in the sequence. Right. So it is particularly useful for tasks that require action on each element of iterable object or when you need to create a block of code. So basically, you see all this in action, right? So let me know in the group if I am going too fast or if I am going too slow, like or if I should increase my speed or decrease my speed. Please let me get back from everyone. All right, all right, all right, great. I say go simultaneously. How is that possible? All right, perfect. I can see some of the people sending messages here at the new students. So please just bear with us, right? Just bear with us. So I believe by next week you should be up to date if you've gone through the materials that I've sent. Just 2 weeks, right? Just 2 weeks. So just bear with us, right? Okay, so now for the syntax of a for loop, you have something like this for variable. So these are just the template for how a for loop is written, right? So you start with for. So once you type for Python, you want to type a for loop variable in, then you now put your sequence here. So this is basically how it is done, right? Then you now follow by a block of code, the action you want to perform, right? So remember, an if statement is based on a condition, like this condition has to be true. But a for loop is not, it doesn't have any business with condition. Just perform that action, right, on each of the elements in the sequence. So this is an example now. We have a list, fruit, apple, banana, cherry, right? So now I want to print out each of these elements. I want to print out each of these elements in the list. So normally, before now, if I ask you to print each of these elements in this list, you would rack your brain on the approach to take. Right. So a for loop is a very very efficient way to do that. So you can just loop over each of the elements. So you come here, perform the action on this one, come to the second one, perform the action, come to this cherry, perform the action. So the elements in the once the element all right once the element in the list has been exhausted, the for loop will terminate automatically. Once it is exhausted, it will be terminated because there's nothing else to loop over. It has ended in cherry, right? So this is the end of the element in the list. So it will end. It will just stop there. So let me illustrate that in the code so you understand better. Someone said I should zoom in. Okay, I'll zoom in so you see it very well. I'll zoom in. All right, great. So now we writing a for loop to loop over a list and print the items or elements in the list. All right. So as you can see, I've written a comment to explain what I want to do next. So I want to write a for loop to loop over a list and print the items or elements in that list. Right. So I can come here and say students. I can create a variable list, student names. So I can just say, all right, I can say Hassan. I can come and say, Chudi. Can say Taiwo. Can say Eniola. Right. So let's just use this for let me make it longer. So you can just put Joy and let's say David. Right. So we have these names. So this is a sequence. This is a sequence, right? I want to print each of this name out to my console to see the items in that list. So before now that you don't know what for loop is, it will be difficult for you to do that. So the only way you would approach that is just come here and say, based on the knowledge you have, you come here and say student names and you say 0. Right? So what you are doing here, you are trying to access this list in the index. Someone said there's a simple error. Okay, thank you very much. I do not. Yeah, that is actually very, very observant. So, normally, before this for loop, this is how you approach it. Based on what we've done, you come here and index it. The first one, so index the second one. Is 1, and then the third one, 2, index the third one, index the fourth one, index the fifth one, index the sixth one. Depending on, but the thing about it is that sometimes you might not know how many. You have to start counting the number of items. You know how many indexes are there. So you have 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we just have 5 indexes. So this is how you do it normally before. So you print, okay, let me add print to all of them. Print, students. All right. Then print, and print, print. So as you can see, it's actually very stressful doing this. So if I come here, I'm going to get all the items in the list: Hazan, Chukudi, Taiwo, Eniola, Joy, and David, right? So this is, if I should tell you to do this, this how you come. Okay, what if we have like let's say 50 names in this list now? So you want to start doing 0, 1, 2, 3, 2, 49. That is going to be a very long process. So a very very efficient way of doing it is using for loop. So what does for loop do in this case? Let me comment this out. Comment it. So a for loop would go over each of the items in that list and perform an action. And the action you want to perform here is printing the name. So I can start by saying for. Now there's something you need to know. This next text I'm going to be typing is actually a variable. So if I say for name in the list now, that is the sequence, students names. Now, this name now is a variable, right? So I'll tell you exactly what will happen during the for loop. So this is the syntax for writing a for loop. For name in student's name. So you write this variable, In then you write the list and then you do your colon. You're not done with your code, so you have to put your colon and then enter indent. So you now perform your action here. So you are going to, let's say, for actually what I want to do now, I want to print out the names. This is a very simple task, right? So sometimes you might actually want to do a different thing. Maybe you might want to convert all these names to small letters. You might want to convert all these names to capital letter, or you might want to do something. So there are myriad of tasks to do or things to do to element the list. So this is a very simple task. So in this case, I'm just going to print out the names because that's what we want to do. I want to see the names that you can say print name. Now, what will happen here is that for name, this name now is going to act as a variable for each of the elements here. So for the first iteration, I told you that for loop is going to go through all the elements in the sequence. So it will start from Azan. It will come here. Python will come here and assign Azan to name. It will assign, this is what will happen here. To come here, assign name to that is the first element in that list. That is Hazan, right? By the index. Someone is asking, but the name was not defined. That is what I'm saying. This name will be created as a variable in the loop. So we are not seeing it. It's not something we are seeing, but that is what happened inside this loop. So the name will be created as a variable, and this assignment will be done. So this assignment will be done to the first name, right? And then once it is assigned, then you will now come to this action. Print name. So what you are going to be printing here is this name that has been assigned to this variable. So it will print it out. That is the first iteration. That is the first loop. It has finished that one. So once it is done with Hazan, now come to Chukwudi and do the same thing again. It will reassign name again to Chukwudi and print out the name. So it goes over each of the elements, doing the same thing over and over again, right? So once it does it for the first element, it comes and it reassigns the name again to the second element, which is Chukwudi, right? So it does that until it reaches the end of the list. So if I run this code, I'm going to see the names printed out here. I'm going to see the names printed out here. So this is instead of doing all this long stuff I just did now, this thing, I can easily just use a for loop. And in two lines, I would have everything. So imagine you have like 50 names here, something you can do in 2 lines. You now start doing it in like 40 something lines. So that's actually not very efficient, right? So this is one of the benefits of for loop, right? So it's one of the use cases. So just understand the syntax. You have for, you can name this in anything. I can change it to student name to still run. Okay, I have to change this one to student name. It will still run, right? To still run. So I can make this, it's just like creating a variable. Just assume that you are creating a variable here, so you can name here, right? You can make it X, right? So, but anything you are putting here, you put in this place too. You include in this place. So Python will know what you are talking about. So that's it for loop. That's basically the idea behind for loop. We get that. Let me get your feedback. Do we understand? So we'll move on. That's for loop, right? So we're actually going to take more examples. Don't worry, we'll take more examples. I just wanted to I'll give you the idea behind it. So let me go back to the material. So now there's something that I need to introduce. There's a function I need to introduce to us. This function is used very, very commonly in for loops. Right? So it is called range. It is called range function. This range function is something you need to know because you use it a lot, like a lot. So this range function is used to generate a sequence of numbers, right? Also, sometimes you might want to perform an action, but the action you want to perform is not on a specific list. You are not trying to modify a sequence. You are trying to just do an action a particular number of times. So a very good way to do that is to use this function range. So you can come here and I told you initially. Let's just go back to this material and you see what we said in this thing. So we said it is particularly that is follow. Follow is particularly useful for tasks that require action on each element of an iterable object. So this is the first use cases of a for loop when you want to perform action, like just what we just did now, or when you need to repeat a block of code a known number of times. So maybe when you want to run a particular code for a known number of times, this one you're not actually performing any action on any list or any dictionary or any tuple or anything. You just want to run a code a number of times. You can use what we call range function. So range function. So it is combined with for loop, right? So now a range function generates a sequence of number. This is how it works. If I type range and my bracket and I put 10, what range does is that it generates sequences of number from 0 to 9. It generates 10 numbers from 0 to 9. If I say 100, it generates number from 0 to 99. It does not always include the last number here. Or if I come and I say 1 and comma. So if I don't put 1, if I don't put any number, if I just put one number, what I'm trying to tell you is that, okay, generates numbers from 0 to the number below this number I'm having here, that's 99, right? So if I come and I put 1 instead, so what I'm telling you, generate number from 1 to 9. So if you don't put 1, it will start from 0, but if you put 1, it will start from 1. Even if you any number you put, if you put 7, it will start from 7. If you put 2, it will start from 2. So this is actually how to use your range function. So let's just delete it now. Let's start with the basics. Let's say 10. I want to generate 10 numbers. That if I run this code now, it will not give me a number. You will not see it printed here. So see what I mean. It will just tell you range 0 and 10. So the way to see what has happened is to convert this range to a list, right? Remember I talked about type conversion. This is why you need to always understand every class that we go through. Remember I talked about type conversion in the first Python programming class. I taught you how to convert from one data type to another. And I introduced you to functions that you can use to convert from a data type to another data type. So in this case now, you will not see, if you run this code, you will not see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, right? Because it is actually it's an object. So the only way to see it is to use the list function. You can use the list function. So you put the range, the values you generated inside this range. And then if you want it to now give you a list of all the numbers it has generated. So as you can see, it generated 0 to 9. If I change this to, let's say 1 to 10, you see now it starts from 1 to 9. So you see, it does not always include the number we have here. I don't know why Python does it that way, but it does not always include the number we have here. So if I say 0 to 100, right? Let me just make it easier for us to see. Print nums. So as you can see, it has generated 100 numbers. Sorry, 99, 1 to 99, right? So this range function can be used to generate a range or a sequence of number. So there are numerous use cases of it. You can even put 1,000 there, Seth. You can even put 1 million. You can put 1 billion. But the thing is that your computer will crash. Your computer will crash if it doesn't have enough memory. So there are cases when you have to run a particular code 100 times. This is what you're going to use. You're going to use range, right? You're going to use range. All right. So please just keep your questions when I'm ready to take the question, you ask them. So now I'm just trying to get an idea of what range is. So range function is used together with for loop a lot. So let's say you want to perform a particular code 10 times. Let's say I want to print out Python is easy 10 times. Instead of coming and saying print Python is easy, right? And just be doing it, copying and paste. Instead of doing it stressful, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so you're given a task to print Python is easy 10 times. So this is actually one way to do it. You just come and print Python is easy, Python is easy, Python is easy. Be typing it. Let's assume you are told to do it 100 times. I know there might not be a situation where you might do that, but just to give you an idea of this concept now. So you now start having to type this thing 100 times. But right now, you can use for loop for that. Easy. How do you do that? You will come here and say for X or number or Y or I. So you are the one that will define or name your variable it is you want to. So I can just come here and say for X in range. I'm to do it 10 times, right? I was coming at 10. Range 10. So what this means is that this thing is going to go over, it's going to perform after we specify under 10 times. So you can print Python is easy, right? So if I run this code, this is going to get Python is easy, Python is easy. So it does exactly what I did all that time, but very, very effective and efficient, right? So this is a simple way this is how we use range. So this range function here, that is how we use range, right? So if I say 100 times, it will do it. So you can see if I scroll, if you count it, it is 100. If I say 1,000 times, it will do it, right? So depending on how many times you want to execute your code. So sometimes you might want to do something else here, like 10 times. You might not necessarily be wanting to print something. You might just want to do something. So as we move on, you will see use cases of all these concepts we are explaining here in this class. So is that okay? Do you guys understand exactly how we use range with a for loop? So yeah, just you can just drop your feedback in the group chat. So so that is it for for loop. That is it for for loop. Right now let's just leave this as print Python is easy. So now let me just quickly check something. So this X now, just to explain, make you understand better what I explained the other time as variable. This X now is going to be taking each of the number that will be generated by this range, right? As a sequence, it will be taking it. So when you are writing when you are using range in for loop, you don't need to put list here. You don't need to put list as I showed you before. This list that I put here, that other time, this other time, is just to display, just for you to see the number that has generated, just for you, right? Once you use it in for loop, automatically loops over the sequence that has been generated. You don't need to put that list again. So, but let's put it and see what will happen. You put list to give you anything, just like saying row. It's just like doing this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9. It's exactly the same thing. So just get that, just understand. All right, so we'll leave that at range 10. So you can play around with it. You can actually play around with it in your computer, do a lot of things, try just think around. You master Python, trust me. Like Python is very easy, as I have said here 10 times. You see, I not did it once, I printed it 10 times. So you would see the emphasis. Yeah, that's just on a lighter note. All right. So the next type of loop we have is called a while loop, right? We have a while loop. So we've talked about for loop. Now we are going to talk about what? While loop. So now this while loop is similar to a conditional statement. It's similar to a conditional statement. Why? Don't worry, you are going to see it. So it is also a way to what? Iterate or run a code like several times. Now, the difference between a while loop and a for loop is that a for loop iterates over a sequence. So it's until it gets to the end of the sequence that a for loop will be terminated. It will stop running. But a while loop will continue executing a code until a condition is what? False. A while loop executes code based on conditions. So now it's similar to conditional statements like the conditional operations that we talked about. So a while loop uses conditions to execute its code. Now you understand. Don't worry, you would understand this perfectly, right? So as you can see here, the while loop in Python executes a block of code as long as the specified condition is true. So as long as that condition is true, it will continue executing that code. So now it's what we call infinite loop. You know what infinite means? There is no end. It continues forever. You can use a while loop to create an infinite loop. So as long as that condition is true, that will continue running, will continue running. It will not stop until the condition what is false. Now let me give an example. As you see, this is the syntax followed by condition. So for you write for variable in your sequence. So, but for while followed by while is you write this while statement here, keyword followed by the condition, right? So if I say an example now, so there are specific use cases of while loop, right? But let me just give you how it is done, right? So in this case, we initialize a variable I 0. So now the condition here is while I is less than 5. So what this thing means is that as long as I is less than 5, continue doing this particular action here. Carrying out this action. This action here is print I and followed by I. You see, using it. We are now bringing in compound statements now. So please, if you don't understand a concept we've talked about before, go back to it. When you watch the video, make sure that you've digested it before moving forward. Because most times, let me tell you the truth, the reason why most people complain of a particular course, a particular skill they're learning is because they are rushing. They don't want to understand the fundamentals. They don't want to understand the basics. They just want to go and acquire. See, if you are grounded in the basics, going forward, you will not find anything difficult. Trust me. There will be nothing that will be difficult. As long as you're understanding the concept that precedes what you're about to learn, you will not find it difficult. So now we've talked about a lot of things. All those things we're talking, it's not just for you to know them, or it's not just for you to say, I code for Python. It's because you would need it in subsequent scenarios or situations, right? As we are moving, progressing in our Python journey, data analysis and machine learning. So make sure that you're understanding this thing. If you don't understand, there are time for questions, please. Because last week class, I was actually not impressed because we didn't ask much questions. Okay, I think I assume we all understood what was taught. So that was why there was no question. And that's actually, if you have questions, please ask. Be cool. Ask. I'm here for you. I'm just have questions. So that's just by the side. Sorry for deviating. So while loop here would execute this code based on this condition here. So as long as this condition is true, it will print I, and what it will add 1 to I. Now let's just go and see. So let me just quickly go through this. So these are the common use cases for while loop. So I've given you this material already, so I think some of us might have gone through it. So for while loop, they are used when you want to iterate until a certain condition is met, or maybe when you want to implement interactive users. So these are just basically use cases of while loop, right? So now we'll go to demonstrate it. So in this case, we're going to create a variable I equal to what? 0. So I'll come here and say while I is less than what? 10. Print I. You can do anything here. You can basically just do anything here. So this action is left for you depending on what you want to do. But let's break this down. So now this condition here, I is less than 10. What does it mean? I is what? 0, right? So is 0 less than 10? Yes, 0 is less than 10. So what is going to happen to this upper statement? So I want to ask you, with this code, what will happen now? Okay, let me just get your feedback. What will happen in this particular situation now? I want to see your feedback in the group. Okay, someone's true. Its print is no longer less than 10. So it will print infinite. It will print 0 to 9. True. Okay. All right. Just get more. Let me just get more. To continue to print 0. True. It will print 0 to 9. True. Infinite. Let's do it so we'll see. Let me not tell you the answer. Let's just do it. So okay. Let me just because of time. What is going to happen here is that it will print infinity. Right? It is an infinite loop. Let me take this to a new let me create a new this thing because it might break the notebook. So let me just create a new notebook here. So this is it here. So if I run this code, it is going to continue printing I. Why? Because this condition is true. 0 is what? Less than 10. So if I run it, this was going to happen. Print 0 to continue printing. This thing is running. This thing is running. It will not stop. It will not stop. It is going to run till thy kingdom come. Unless your computer crashes or something happens or your battery dies, it will continue running or your memory gets filled up. So that is while loop for you. It will continue looping forever, right? If you have enough computer resources and enough memory, it will continue forever. So that's basically the idea of while loop. So I'll just have to stop everything. I'll come here. As you can see, the thing is already hanging itself because my memory is full. So it's something that's why I had to like use a new notebook, right? So let me try to stop it. So as you can see what it is doing now. So don't try to run infinite loop on your computer. It's going to like freeze everything. It's going to freeze everything. So it's even telling me these pages are not responding, right? So it is filling up my computer memory. Like everything is, my CPU is working, like doing the same. So exactly. So I just needed to demonstrate that for you so you see exactly what happens. So you see exactly what happens. So just give me a minute to reset my Jupyter notebook. So I've started my notebook afresh because it didn't allow me to do any other thing. It just you saw it now. I didn't even have to explain again. So right. Okay. Let me zoom out a little. So hope you guys are enjoying the class. Hope everyone is enjoying the class and you're understanding what it is we are I'm talking about. We are talking about here. All right, 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 all right. So, all right, all right, great. So let's quickly create a new and just let you that we don't have much time again. So now let's bring it back. Now this is a while this is an infinite loop. If you want to create an infinite loop without all this condition, you just come and type true. Why true? This is an infinite loop. True. So it will continue doing everything because this very even put you never put any condition. You just do. It's true. Remember, I taught you about Boolean data type. Right. So when you run a conditional statement, it will give you either true or false. So we are even coming here to just write the true there. So it will continue executing. This is an example of an infinite loop. Please don't try. If you try running an infinite loop in your computer, it will just freeze everything. So this is an infinite loop, right? So I just need to demonstrate that to you so you see. All right, great. So now, how do we use while loop? So in cases where you have I, let's just use that as an example. I is equal to 0, and you say while I is less than 10, print I, and you now come again and say I plus equal to 1. What are you doing here? Once you run, okay, please, can anyone tell me what will happen here? I would actually love to hear your responses. Can anyone tell me what will happen here now, based on the knowledge you have on compound statement? Can anyone explain what this code would do? Someone said it will print from 0 to 4. Someone said the number will keep increasing by 1. 1 will be printed. Please use the live class. Use the live. Don't use general. Use the live class for anything that concerns our live sessions. Please, general class is for general matters, right? This live class was created for your all right. So I've not nobody has gotten it yet. I'm still waiting for someone to get the answer. They keep adding 1 to 0. Exactly. Thank you. Opeyemi. It will keep adding 1 to 0 till it gets to 9. Yusuf, it will print 0 to 9. David, okay. So exactly, Kelvin, it will print 1. Actually, it will print 0 to 9. That is what is going to happen here. So if I print this is what is going to happen. It's going to print 0 to 9. Why? Because once we assess this condition and it's true, 0 is what is less than 10. It's true, then this print will print out. Then it will now execute this code to I will now I is 0, and this compound statement will add 1 to I. So this I will now change to 1. So this 1 will now come back here, and this place will now be 1. So it's now 1 is 1 less than 10. True. To print 1, and then it will now come here. 1 is 1. It will now add 1 to 1. It will now be 2. So it basically keeps adding till this is gets to 9. Sorry, it gets to 10. Once it reaches 10, right? Because it will keep adding 1. Once it reaches 10 here, it's going to assess this condition. Is 10 less than 10? Everybody is 10 less than 10? No. So what is it? What am I going to get here? I'm going to get false. So once this place changes to false, this place will not print. Nothing is going to happen here. The loop will end. Right? So that's why this thing stops at 9. Do we understand? Do you understand the idea behind this? So once it's this particular conditional statement is false, it's not going to execute the code that is under it. So that is how while loop works. That's exactly how while loop works, right? So We are going to be moving on from there. Although, let me see if there are other examples, right? So basically, that is just the idea of while loop. That is just the idea. So we have loop control statements. These are just additional concepts to the for loop. So we have break. Break is something you can add to your loop. It exits the loop and skips the execution of any remaining iterations, right? So continue, it skips the rest of the code inside the loop for the current blah blah blah. So these are just specific cases or specific statements for very very unique instances, right? So well, let me just try to illustrate it. So if I'm coming here and I've run this statement on, okay, I run a statement and I come here and I put if I is equal to 7 or equal to 6. You see now, I am including an if statement inside a while loop. So everything that we're doing now is coming together. So our code will now become to look more complex. So I'm including an if statement. So if I is equal to 6, then break.
All right, good evening, everybody. I think our teacher, Mr. Emmanuel, is having an issue with his network. I hope you can hear me. So let's give him some time to come up again. And while we are waiting, please, I will encourage you to use your real names. Please use your real names because the robot taking the attendance might skip your name if what he's saying there is maybe um, something that has nothing to do with the name. Please use your real name so that when we are using the attendance to cross check your name on our database, it will be easier for it to mark. Do you understand me? If your name on in here Telegram and the name on the database both don't match, we will not be able to mark your attendance. Are we together? Because I will encourage you to use your name. So if your name is not, um, if your name on Telegram here is not the same with one you use in registering for this program, please change your name here to reflect your real name. So that when the BOT copies your name here, we can easily compare your name and mark your attendance. I will encourage you to do that. Thank you very much and enjoy your class.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much, David. All right, great. So I hope everyone can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you. We
All
can
right,
hear you.
great. I had an issue with my network, so all right. So now I'm trying to explain what the break statement does, right, in for loop. So I'm using this example we gave before. So I initialize the variable, then the while loop. So this was what we had here before. We had this statement, right, that will print 0 to 9. So I came here now to add an if statement. If I is equal to 6, then break. So what this break statement does is that it stops the execution of this while loop if this condition is met. So who can tell me what will be the output of this code? Like I know it might not be easy to understand, but can you just guess what the output will be of this code? Let me get your feedback in the comment section, please. Yes, I'm seeing. Yeah, okay, that's nice. And wow, I don't even need to stress myself. You people are just too good. Like you guys are just understand sharp, sharp. All right, that is very nice. So if I print it, it's going to print out 0 to 6, right? So as you can see here, while I is less than 10, print I. But if I is now 6, then break. So it will now break like at 6. It will stop the loop. So break is a way to stop the execution of a loop based on a condition, right? Based on a condition. So that's actually how we use break in 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 for loop, right? So for continue skips the rest of the code inside the loop for the current iteration and moves to the next iteration. So let's come here now and instead of this thing, we put continue. Wait, okay. Um, interrupt the canal. I should have done something. So it's actually running an infinite loop right now. So you can see the is actually the effect of. Just give me a minute, please. Please give me a minute. I'm trying to reset my Jupyter notebook. So anytime you meet an infinite loop, it will most likely just scatter the whole process. So yeah, it's actually difficult to. I know restarting kernel will stop it, but I can't even click on anything. So it's actually exactly. You have to be very careful once using while loop. I even try restarting my kernel, but it's very slow. So the time it will take me to restart my kernel is better. I just restart the whole thing and continue. So just be careful about using using that, right? So just give me a minute. All right. So yeah, just give me. Okay, so we've talked about break. We've talked about break. So let's just quickly go through how we use continue so we can move on. So the thing is that this break and continue statement, you might not necessarily use it so often, right? You might not necessarily use it so often, but Like it's essential that you know about it. So let's say we initialize 0 and then we say y. Okay, before I go, let me just quickly show you for loop. So you can also use break for for loop. Let's initialize a list variable. Name is equals to or name is equals to. All right. So let's say you want to use a for loop to print names for name in names. Um, if okay, print name, but if name is equals to joy, then break. So now this is break in a for loop. I showed how to use it in while loop. So in this place, um, we are actually looking through these names, right? So normally a for loop will go through the item in the list till it reaches the end. But using your break statement and your if statement is going to check the condition if your name, if while it is going through the elements, if it gets to a point where the name is equal to joy, stop everything, right? So you maybe it is looking for joy in that list, right? Maybe there are other ways to look for joy, right? But let's just assume we want to print all the names like before this joy, before it gets to joy. So you can use this particular statement and then follow it by break. So this is actually how to use break statement in a for loop. So I hope you understand that. Like we'll be moving on to the continue statement and just quickly go through functions, right? We need to go through this function today because next week, tomorrow, we'll be entering an entirely new um, topic, right? So okay, let's say we change this to continue. Now, this continue basically is the opposite of break. Once it gets to this particular name, this condition, it would continue. It would continue the code, right? So the thing is that there's a very specific use case of this continue. Probably when you want to print out, let's say, numbers that are divisible by 3 or numbers that are divisible. So let me just give you an example. I want to quickly run through this. So we move on to functions. So we have, let's say, let me just use range. Let me use range for num in range 111, right? If num modulo 3 is equals to 0, continue, right? And then come and say print num. So this is actually a situation where you use this continue statement. So if you run this code, now, you're going to get something like this: 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. Right. So we're actually printing out just those numbers that are divisible, right? If like those numbers that are divisible by 3, we are skipping them. So this continue literally mean we should skip this condition, those elements that meet this condition, and print the rest. So in this situation, the number that are divisible by 3 are what? 3, 6, and 9. So as you can see in this place, we are not seeing it because in this condition, we say if number is modulo 3 mean the remainder. If you divide the number here by 3 and the remainder is 0, skip it. but continue and print the remaining numbers. So this is just the specific case where we use this continue statement. So um, you can get other examples. I will add additional resources where you can reference or get other examples that would explain further what continue statement is. But for sake of time, we'll just move on to the next for today. So we've gone over for loop and while loop, right? So we're going to be entering functions. So now we've been talking about function since the beginning of this program, right? In the first programming class, I talked about function, where I introduced you to print function, right? So what exactly are functions? So now we're going to talk about it. So functions in Python are defined blocks of reusable code designed to perform a specific task or a set of related tasks. So now function is just like a package. It's just like what its name is, a function. It has a function to do a particular thing. So it's actually the height or the highest point you can get to writing efficient Python code. So all this while loop I've been talking about, for loop, if statement, arithmetic operations, everything, you can package all these concepts into a function. So you can write a function that will include all these things that we've been talking about and have that function to do a particular task whenever you want it to do a particular task. So for example, now we've been using print statements. We've been using the print statement since the beginning of this code. This print statement is a function. So whenever you see anything in Python that has two brackets, this is a function. Is a function. We'll also be using the type. Type is a function. We've also used list to convert to list function. A string is a function. So anything that has brackets, open and close bracket in Python is a function, right? And those functions, they are defined to do a particular task. So all these functions you are seeing now, they have already been defined by those people that created Python. So you can just use it anytime you want to use it, right? So there are two kinds of functions in Python. There are before we move to that, there are two kinds of functions in Python. We have the user-defined functions and we have built-in functions. Let me just write it out here. I think it should be somewhere in the material here. We have types of function. We have built-in functions and we have user-defined functions. So we also have another function, right? But we are not going to treat that for today. That is I will reference a material, a video where you watch where you are going to understand this particular. But for the sake of this class, we're going to be talking about built-in functions and user-defined functions. So for built-in functions is what we've been using since print, type, float, dict, len, max, all these things we've been, anything you see in Python that we just write it out with brackets, right? It's a built-in function. It is built into Python, so we can use it to perform any operation or anything we want to do in Python, right? So there are a lot of them. There are plenty built-in functions in Python. I'll give you a reference to that where you can look at all the built-in functions and what they can do. So each of them has a functionality. So we're not going into that now. So we have another type of function called user-defined functions. So this is the one we are going to be learning, right? So you can actually define your own function. Just like as we have all these ones, you can define your own functions, creating your own functions. So how do we create functions in Python? So first of all, to create a function, you need to use what we call the def keyword. Def is what we use. Remember, to create an if statement, use if. For loop, you use for. While loop, you use while. For function, you start with def, right? Followed by what? The function name. Followed by the function name. So this function name now would have an opening bracket and a closing bracket, right? It have an opening and a closing bracket. So then you put your colon and then you type enter. Remember, last class, we were talking about string. Remember when I talked about comment and docstring? I said that comment is used anywhere in Python, but a docstring is used inside a function. So now you can actually use docstring and explain what your function will do. So you can come and put a docstring, three docstring, and then explain what the function is in. This is where you explain what your function, yes, what your function does, right? So this is how you apply docstring to in Python. You use it whenever you want to define a function. Although it will not change anything, no, it will not affect your function, but it's a good practice to always explain what your function does, right? So now we can just leave this here, and then what follows after this is your code, what you want your function to do, right? So this is where you write. This is where you write your function code, right? So now, let me just go over it. So now we have several parts of a function, right? Before I give you an example, we have function name, which I've told you about. Once you write your def, it will be followed by the function name. So we have parameters or arguments. I will talk about that, right? This is actually optional, but I will talk about that. So we have function body. This is the block of code that performs the specific task of the function. So everything that comes below that is your function body. And we have the return statement. So this return statement is also optional. It is also optional, right? But it's part of a function. So let's come here and define a very simple function. Let's say we want to define a simple function. So I would come here and just say def. Let's say I want to define a function that adds two numbers. And I come and say add numbers. This is my function name. I can name it anything I want to name it, and then put your bracket. So now what I'm about to put inside this bracket is called the parameter. Remember when I was giving the part of the function, is called the parameter. That is what you want to manipulate, right? So you can have, let's say you want to create a function that will add two numbers. So you have two parameters, A and B, that will indicate the numbers that you are going to add together, right? So you can call this anything. You can call it A on B. You can call it number 1 and number 2, right? So once you do that, you can now go to the function body, right? It's optional to write your docstring. You can write the docstring. It's optional, right? But in this case, don't write the docstring. The docstring is usually used when you are creating a library or you are creating a module, right, that other people will be using. So they can easily know what the function they are trying to do or is going to perform. So in this case, you don't need to write the docstring. You can write your function code. So you can come here and say print num1 plus num2. So this is a function. Like you've actually created a function here. So you've created this function now. How do I use this function? You can now come to any part of your code, right, and call the function. So you call your function the same way you use print. This print, now what you are doing is actually you are calling this function that have been defined by people that created Python. When you use type, you are calling this function. So once you create your own function, you can easily call it by calling the name that you give to it. So the name you give to it is add num with the bracket, right? So in this function, it takes in two arguments. So what you have here is called parameter, but what you are going to put here is called argument. Understand that what you have, while defining your function, what you call these things you put here is called parameter. But when you are calling your function, what you put there is called argument. So when you come here, you now put the two numbers you want. Let's say 4 and 8. So you want to add these two numbers. So if you run this function, you will get 12. You get. So you have basically created a function and you've successfully called that function. So this is a very simple explanation of what a function is in Python and how to create function rather. So you start with the def, your function name, and then your parameter, right? So there are some cases where you might not put parameter here. There are some cases where you put parameter, right? So in this case, we'll put your parameters. If you are adding three numbers, you can just make it num1, num2, and num3. Now, in this case now, there are three parameters here. But if you call your function and you put just two arguments, it's going to give you an error because when you're defining your function, you actually indicated that when that person is calling the function, they should put one number, two number, and three numbers, right? So we'll come here and just add it. Num3. Let's run it again. So when you created your function, you included three numbers. So when you come here, you are supposed to put three numbers. So if you put two numbers and you run your code, it's going to give you an error, right? Let's come here. Let's run this code. So it's going to give you an error, as you can see. The error is what? Add num missing one required positional. Add num missing one required positional argument num3. Can you see it? That means it's telling you that you did not add the third number that you defined in your function there. So you have to come here and add another number, 6. All right. Okay, let me slow down. Am I too fast? Am I too fast? Someone said I'm too fast. Should I slow down? I'm trying to do this because of time. We don't really have time. All right. So you can always go back to when you understand. You can ask questions at the end. You can also always go back to what we're doing. But I hope you are following what I'm explaining and it's actually understanding it. Hope you're all following what I'm saying about functions. Or should I recap? Okay. 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 Following. Recap. Yes, please recap. All right. All right. Great. So the thing is, I'm trying to explain what a function is. Like we've talked about loop. Now we are into function, right? So now we can define a function by using def keyword followed by the function name and a bracket that will contain what we call parameters. If you come here, we talked about the part of the function name, the parameters or arguments, and the function body where you write the code that is going to define what your function does, and then the return statement. This one is also optional, right? So to create your function, you would have to start with def, then your function name, and then you would now include, depending on what your function wants to do, you will include parameters. So in this case, we want to add three numbers. We start with two numbers, so we included now another number. So we're going to add the three parameters. So you can name this thing anything. It's not necessary you use a specific. You can name it A, B, C. Come here, A, B, C. Just separate them by a comma. And you have to come here and make sure it's still the same thing. A plus B plus C, right? So if I run that, I've created my function. So I can easily come here and call my function, right? So I gave it three parameters here. So if I'm calling it, I have to give it three arguments. These are called arguments. So three arguments that would be executed. So if I run this now, I'm going to get 18 because this function will add these three numbers. So it will take in something and it will output something. So that's what function does. It takes in input and it will give you an output, right? So that is what a function. This is a very, very simple function. This just help you understand what a function does, right? So now I'm going to explain what a return statement is. Now, we defined a function here and we just printed the result out. But in function, there's what we call return statement. Return statement. So this return statement is basically let me instead of printing that, I'll just say um sum sum of number, some number equals to a. So what I'm doing is that I'm assigning the sum of these three numbers to this variable, and I'm not going to come here and say return some number. So this is how you would normally see a function defined. You would have the def, you have the function name, the parameters, and then you have the function body where you are going to write the code for what your function will do, and then you have your return. What this return does is that it takes this output now, this the variable, the value of this value, and return it to the function. So whenever you call your function, whenever you come here and let's say you say add number, and you say 393, you won't okay, you would see a value, right? But normally the return statement doesn't print anything. Let's just do something and say pass. Right. So once you call your function, you won't nothing will be printed out because you did not include any print statement in your function. So but you included a return statement. So this return statement returns the value of the output, the value of this particular variable you are returning to the function, right? What does pass do? Okay, pass is just it's just a keyword in Python that is used to it doesn't do anything, right? But it doesn't give you an error. Maybe you are defining a function like def. It's not important, but I just want to answer that question. I'm saying def func. You can just put pass there to just maybe as a placeholder, right? It's not doing anything. It's just to occupy space and just to make sure that you are not receiving any error. Maybe you don't want to write anything now in your function. You just want to create the function and leave it. It's not to leave it empty like this. If you leave it empty, it's going to give you an error. You can just put pass, like pass. Then just keep this one waiting for me. Let me come and just pass it, right? So this pass here too. This pass that I wrote here. Let me this pass I wrote here is the same thing. It is not doing anything, right? But Python is still recognizing it. The reason why I put this pass, because I don't want this output to be shown in this console here, right? Because in Jupyter Notebook, anything you put at the end is going to be what is going to be the output in this particular place. So I understand this concept now is a little bit advanced. Like we are entering the main aspect of Python. So just take your time to understand. Just take your time. Don't put pressure on yourself, right? Don't put pressure on yourself to understand this. This is a new concept, so it might it will take some time to understand, and that is fine, and that is actually acceptable, right? So, but just follow what I'm doing. So now this I'm trying to return statement is so return now you come here and you define your function. It will not print anything. But if you can assign your function output to a variable. Let's say we come here and say function output. So now I am assigning my function to the output of my function to a variable. The reason why this can happen is because there's a return statement here. This return statement is basically assigning the output to the function itself. So the function now is going to act as a value. The value of this function is the output of the function. that can be confusing to understand, but yeah, the value of this function now that will be assigned to this variable is the output of the function here. So if I run this, I'm going to get I'm not going to get anything because I'm not printing anything now. But if I come here and print function output, print function output. Okay, sorry. This is not correctly spelled. So I'm going to get 15. I'm going to get 15. Why? Because the output of this, the output of this function is assigned to the function itself. So when we assign this function to a variable, the output value, that is the return statement, is going to be assigned to this variable, and we can now print that output, right? So, for instance, now if we don't have a return statement and we just have print sum, right? Let me run it. There'll be this add sum now will have no value because we are not returning anything to it, so it will be none, right? So if we assign this function to a variable, what we're going to see here is none, right? So as you can see, we are seeing none, right? So basically this is how return statement works for a function. It is I would admit that it can be confusing for people that are just new to Python, but just go back and rewatch the video. Go to the materials I sent, the PDF I sent, the book PDF, read it. I'll also reference some videos that you can watch on YouTube to better help you better explain what a function is and what a function does. On tomorrow class, I'm going to be stopping here because of time. If not, I would have gone to give you more examples. So, but for tomorrow's class, we are going to start with this function too and give more examples so you can understand it, right? So, we are going to be stopping here because of time. We are going to be stopping here because of time. It's already 5 o'clock, and I believe most of us have engagements, right? So I'll just give quick time to ask questions, like 10 minutes. Ask your questions. If you have a question, you can raise your hand, and I will attend to you swiftly. Yeah. So it's time for question. If you have any question, please indicate. So I'll. All right. So Usman Issa, I've unmuted you. You can ask your question. Usman, please ask your question. Please, if you raise your hand and I unmute you, please go on to ask your question. Cornelius, I'll be unmuting you now. Please ask your question. I've unmuted you. Please, you can ask your question. Cornelius, hello. Cornelius, please, you can ask your question. You're raising your hand. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the class.
Omolad. Okay.
Hello, thank you, sir, for the class. Hello, can you hear me, sir?
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, I can hear you.
Sir, my question is, in defining your function, is there a limit to the operation you use? Because on the one you use now, you are using addition. You are using addition. Is there a limit to it, or there's a specific operation a function rather, operation rather that you use to define your function? You are using addition to get the three numbers together. What if we intend to use maybe modulus or minus or something? Will it still work?
I don't think I got that your question. Do you mean like as we have several additional operations here, we can also do it for other operations? Can you
Yes.
elaborate?
What if, yes, sir, what I mean is, can I use minus instead of addition? Can I use other operation, not addition? Is it possible
Of
in defining it?
Of course, of course. It depends on what you want your function to do, right? If you want your
Okay.
function to subtract two numbers, you can as well use your subtraction sign. So you can just come here and instead of addition, you
Yes.
can put your subtraction, and then you would change your add sum to subtract number. So your function name would exactly be difference, you can say difference, and
Hello,
come
sir.
here
Hello, Mr.
and
Manuel. I
yeah.
think you should. I think you should be able to go and practice it. We have already answered the question. You can. There's no limit to what you can do with a function. You can do addition,
Yeah.
subtraction, and all that. Just go and practice it yourself. Use it.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. Let's just some of them they are actually just very new to this. So but because of time, I'll just answer this one, and anyone that is similar to it, you would just have to go and do it yourself. So basically, you can actually do the same thing. So once you run your function, You can come here and call your function. So your function is dependent on what you want it to do, right? It depends on what you want to do. So there's no limit to what a function can do. If you want it to subtract number, you just define it to subtract number. If you want it to be modulus, you define modulus. You use what you've learned already to define functions, right? So I just hope that is that answers your question. So you see what I did there. You can run it yourself and see if it works, right? So next person, I think Omolade, you are raising up your hand. So I have unmuted you, Omolade. You can speak. Omolade, are you there? All right, next person. Moses, please go on to speak. I'm letting you
Hello,
now.
I'm here. I've been talking since.
All right, okay. You can ask your question.
Yeah, good day, sir. For
Yeah,
me, I'm
good day.
just joining the class, and this has been part of my dream to learn programming.
All
So,
right,
with all this, I'm a kind of person who would like to paint scenarios, like when I'm working. So it
all right,
doesn't allow me forget whatever I've learned. So
all right.
probably maybe in our next session, if you can use statement instead of single variables like A, B, C, or just names, that statement will make us paint scenarios probably to, like all these examples now. If we use statement like, okay, if a bag is on the table, true or false, all those kind of, I don't know how to paint the scenario yet, because
Yeah, I
I've not
understand. I
really
understand.
gone deeply into it, so it will make us have an in-depth knowledge and understanding of it.
Yeah, I understand your question. Are you a new student or you said you
Yes,
are
I'm
just
a new
joining?
student. Yes.
Okay, have you gone through the other recordings?
Yeah, I'm going through it already. So I'm just taking my
Okay.
time because I want to understand very well.
All right. See, the thing is that once you go through this recording, with the explanation, you understand them. Like you can as well create examples for yourself. You get, I
Okay.
have limits to how many examples I can create because of time. But on your own, based on what we've taught, you can go back on your Jupyter notebook, create examples, and practice. Right, just practice. You even learn better by practicing. Yeah. So that's it for that. I hope I've answered your question. All right,
All
Moses, you
right.
can
Thank
go.
you.
No, I don't know how to pronounce your surname, please. Moses, please go on to speak. I unmuted you. All right. Awokweju Oluwaseun, please speak. I've unmuted you.
Thank
Oluwaseun, please, you
you.
can speak.
My question goes thus. It's just about the string variables. The double quotes and the single quotes, do they perform the same function in Python, sir?
Yeah, they perform the same function in Python. They perform the same function in Python.
Thank you,
No
sir.
difference. All right, thank you. Benjamin, please go on to speak.
Good
Um,
evening, sir.
okay,
Good
Moses, yeah.
evening. Yes, sir. Good
I
evening
can
to
hear
you.
you. All right.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm a new student as well, but I enjoy the class. In course of our learning, we talked about while loop and the for loop, and we said that the while loop is infinity. That if you give a statement, it can continue till, in fact, it can crash your system. So, as a data scientist, at what level does this while loop come to play? Where do we use it, since we are talking about it, and its own is to give you to infinity, which is, we may not have where to contain it. Where does its own application come to?
Okay. And if you paid attention, I didn't say while loop is for infinity. It's when the condition is true that it will be infinity. Right? So when you're writing your while loop, obviously you would have to specify a condition that will be terminated at some point. So you don't write a while loop that will run for infinity. I'm just giving you a scenario that if the condition that is on the while loop is always true and it doesn't change to false at some point, it will continue running as long as it is true. So while loop is very useful, right? It does not just it does not run till infinity always, right? If you get the recording, please just go over the class, and I think you pick the idea behind what White Loop is.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Babatunde, you can go on to speak. I'm about to unmute you now. Yeah, Mohammed, Mary, and
All right, sir.
Oluwaseun.
Thank you for
I would unmute you after now.
all right.
All
Thank you
right.
for the class for today. All right.
Yeah.
My question is a question of concern. I just want to ask, since Mr. Umeyos, the other people is also here. Now he raised an announcement. He said we should make sure that our name is in sync with the name we use. But I want to say something. My name on the Google Classroom is Babatunde Akimbo, but my name on the Telegram is my
Hello. Hello. I think you went off
Uh,
there.
Mr. Emmanuel.
All
Hello, Mr.
right.
Emmanuel. Babatunde, I've already
hello.
responded to you. Mr. Babatunde,
I,
I've responded to
I
you.
didn't
I've
say.
told you that we have taken note of it. The BOT has already done that. So there's no need for these questions again. So that you will not keep us here.